Chapter 37, and I have Morgan back on pictures. Now, at the very end of yesterday, Zero helped Stanley get up the mountain. So if you look at he's actually holding onto the blade, so the part that you would put in the ground to shovel that dirt. And Zero was holding onto that, and Stanley was going up and down the wooden part, the shaft of the shovel. So as he's holding that blade, it cut into his hand. So that's the part that we left out on. So this is 37. We're almost there, said Stanley. He could see the base of the mountain, so the bottom. Now that they were really almost there, it scared him. Big Thumb was his only hope. If there was no water, no refuge, then they'd have nothing, not even hope. There was no exact place where the flat land stopped and the mountain began. The ground got steeper and steeper, and then there was no doubt that they were headed up the mountain. Yeah, that's a good one. There's a little bit of a glare today. Stanley could no longer see Big Thumb. The slope, so the steepness of the mountain, was in the way. It became too steep to go straight up. Instead, they had to zigzag back and forth, increasing their altitude. So altitude is them going up high by small increments every time they change direction. So instead of a straight line up the hill, they're going side to side, which adds a lot. Patches of weeds dotted the mountainside. They walked from one patch to another using the weeds as footholds, so they're pushing on the weeds to get up. As they got higher, the weeds got thicker. Many had thorns, and they had to be careful walking through them. Stanley would have liked to stop and rest, but he was afraid that they'd never get started again. As long as Zero could keep going, he could keep going too. Besides, he knew they didn't have much daylight left. As the sky darkened, bugs began appearing above the weed patches. A swarm of gnats, look up that, G-N-A-T-S. A swarm of gnats hovered around them, attracted by their sweat. Neither Stanley nor Zero had the strength to try and swat at them. "How you doing?" Stanley asked. Zero pointed thumbs up. Then he said, "If a gnat lands on me, it'll knock me over." Stanley gave him more words. B-U-G-S, he spelled. Zero concentrated hard. Then he said, "Bugs." I don't know if we're going to be able to see this one. But you guys being Minnesotans probably know gnats. Gnats are just those real little bugs that kind of go around your head. So smaller than mosquitoes. B-U-G-S, he spelled. Zero concentrated hard. Then he said, "Bugs?" Stanley laughed. A wide smile spread across Zero's sick and weary face as well. "Bugs," he said. "Good," said Stanley. "Remember, it's a short U if there's no E at the end." Okay, here's a hard one. How about L-U-N-C-H? Un. Suddenly, Zero made a horrible, retching noise as he doubled over, bent over, and grabbed his stomach. His frail, meaning his little body, shook violently, and he threw up, emptying his stomach of the sploosh. He leaned on his knees and took several deep breaths. Then he straightened up and continued going. The swarm of gnats stayed behind, preferring the contents of Zero's stomach, his puke, to the sweat on the boys' faces. Stanley didn't give him any more words, thinking that he needed to save his strength, but about 10 or 15 minutes later, Zero said, "Lunch." As they climbed higher, the patches of weeds grew thicker, and they had to be careful not to get their feet tangled in thorny vines. Stanley suddenly realized something. There hadn't been any weeds on the lake. "Weeds and bugs," he said. "There's gotta be water around here somewhere. We must be getting close." A wide, clown-like smile spread across Zero's face. He flashed the thumbs up sign, then fell. He didn't get up. Stanley bent over him. "Come on, Zero," he urged. "We're getting close. Come on, Hector. Weeds and bugs. Weeds and bugs." Stanley shook him. "I've already ordered your hot fudge sundae," he said. "They're making it right now." Zero said nothing.